To be more specific, it's the Seestar S50. It's pretty simple when it comes to connecting it to devices. You download Seestar, the Seestar app, you open it up, and then I'm going to disconnect it real quick.
Shutting down.
Alex, I know what that you're connecting it. I'm going to kind of put you on the spot, but it could be for anybody. So while the library has this particular camera, and y'all have a specific one, other people may have different cameras. So I was going to ask, is there something specific that people need to be looking for if they don't have these exact models at their homes?
So really, that's a great question. So let's say, when I was working with the kids earlier, I talked to them, to the truth of the matter is, this all starts off, all of these are cameras, like we said, photography, right? So it's knowing about the lens and the zooms. So really what you're gonna wanna know on your camera, you could use today's cell phones even have that kind of camera on it, right?
Well, this right here,
Right.
it's sort of off track, but that's the astronomy camera that I'm
Right. But your question was, is there something special they have to have? And the answer is no. You wanna know about your zoom, how much you can zoom in. Does that make sense? I didn't go into detail with that particular camera here, but it's the equivalent of a 675 millimeter zoom. Okay, so when you buy a standard camera, it's going to give you something like a wide angle, which is how wide or how much you can see, to how much it's going to zoom in. So standard camera, like most of these, starts off at like 35 millimeter, right? You've heard about that. That's how far the lens is. That's a wide angle lens. And it goes to, depending on what you buy, 135, usually 200, if you get an SLR that zooms in and zooms out, right? But that's what you want to know. Now the other part is they did add this, like this one's 375 millimeters, just on this little camera. So
It
it's
also
about
has
half.
digital zoom.
Right, and that's what we're going to go next. So then the next part is a thing called digital zoom. And what happens with digital zoom is your cameras then have on the sensors, they start zooming in, kind of like I was talking about what these lenses are doing. They're digitally altering to zoom into a certain area, look at the pixels. But what can happen with digital zoom, you've probably seen it if you put it on your camera, is that it starts pixelating and squaring out because it's getting there. Plus the gain up, which is what I didn't get a chance to talk about on this, but you actually control how much light's coming in and how much digital light is allowed in. The gain up can cause that kind of purplish color you saw at first, etc. So it's going to affect your photo as well. So you got to know about gain ups. You know, those are something you're going to look gains. What is gains? What are hues? What are lights? Those are all things you're going to want to learn and experience with your cameras, whatever you're using. But any camera, literally any camera with a digital zoom and the ability to record a video versus just the standard snapshots, right, will be able to do it. As long, the second part we've got to make very critical, you get a ND filter that is strong enough to cover up your lens, because that sunlight coming through is going to burn the sensors on the back of your camera. You can't just take a camera and point it right at the sun and start taking pictures. It's going to fry your sensors. So with everything that we have, we're going to end up putting these really dark, what they call ND filters, right? Dark gray filters. For this one, I think the filter set cost us $50, Dr. Cox, for the filter for the magnetic filter that goes over this, the dwarf tube. We have that ND filter that you're seeing right here. Look how dark that is. I mean, that's what's going to have to go on this lens. Does that make sense? It's the same reason you can't just take your eyes and look up, and Dr. Cox said you really need to get the glasses, right, in order to look up. So yes, those are all things that are going to need to be known before you just try to point a camera at the sun and start taking pictures.
All right, so first I'm going to finish up talking about Seestar, then I'm going to go on to this. But to connect the Seestar, if you can see it from here, all it is the Seestar app, and there's the button that tells you to connect it. You hit that, you hit enter app, you hold your, in the case of this Seestar telescope or camera, you push the power button on the side until it beeps, and it'll tell you it's ready to connect, and then it'll show up on here.
Powering on. Ready to connect.
See? And then it pops up, connect. It's gonna connect to Bluetooth, then you're gonna have to go into your Wi-Fi settings and connect to the Seestar. In the case of this one, it's the one that says S50, and then it'll tell you on the app the numbers behind it, and you just click on it. The password I already have saved in here, but it's gonna tell you right here, Wi-Fi password and everything. In the case of starting off default, it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But, and then you go into, in our case, we're going into scenery right now, just because it's the only mode that'll work in this sort of light. It'll load up, and then you use the on-screen joystick to adjust the position. And the funny thing is, the default zoom on this, again, as Dr. Cott said, this is new, so even I haven't gotten to play around with it much, so I'm pretty sure there's probably a way to do it, but I haven't figured it out. Zooming out, because if I try to focus, it's going to focus somewhat, but because everything is so close, it's not going to completely focus.
Autofocus completed.
As you see, it said autofocus completed, but it's not actually focused in. But there's several different modes. There's a little down arrow in the corner. We have stargazing, solar, lunar, and planetary. Now, as with anything, if you do the solar, you're going to have to take this lens, and on this telescope, it just slots in right into the, and then it's just a simple tab to pull it out. The lens, I'm pretty sure came with this one, but on here it also has the options for spotting different things, and it actually says right here it's the night's best views, and it gets the location from your device. So it's saying that tonight's best, it's going to be M42, M31, M1, and it'll just has a list of, I think, 10.
Are those positions?
They're not the positions, but they are the actual constellations or galaxies or whatever you're trying to find themselves.
So M42 is the one I took pictures of that I showed you guys up on the screen from the other camera. That is M42.
And then I brought this camera out for a reason whenever you've asked, does it need to be anything specific? Because if I can get it on and show you, this camera has, it goes from 24 millimeter to 2000 millimeter, and that 2000 is with your digital zoom, and then I'll go around and show. You can see the high quality picture. I did get pictures of several planets, although they are not on this SD card, but you can see the detail in the picture of the moon.
And so if we needed a filter for that, would it have to be a filter for that particular model or any model, or are we getting just a filter that would work over several cameras?
So yes, so depending on the camera you have, each camera whatever you're purchasing. Let's just say I'm using my regular Nikon, my which one is this? The D7200. There is a length or a size of your outside diameter of your lens. So this one in particular is 52 or 52 millimeters on the outside. So I have to buy a 52 millimeter ND lens, if that makes sense. So yes, you're going to want to make sure. The truth is, you may not find that for your camera, especially if you're talking about your home camera. Like we're talking about, my wife has one of those little pocket cannons that you pull out, and maybe she wants to use it. The answer would be, if you're not going to use, you need to find something that covers that whole lens.
Yeah.
But let's say she could get something like this that covered that whole lens. You want to make sure it gets completely covered. Does that make sense? Over it. Find some way to seal in the outside light. Because here's the problem. Let's say I take this and I want to go record it, and all of a sudden I've got fringes on the outside. It's going to cause flares and different things in my video. It's going to have an effect on my picture. So you're going to want to make sure that you seal out all the light if you're not getting the exact size for the one that you need. For the one that we have here, there is, the manufacturer makes, it's a magnetic one that specifically clips right inside that gap, and it covers both lenses. Some of your cameras like this, the other thing that's critical, like I told you earlier, this has a wide angle lens here, and it has the telephoto lenses on the other side. So this one has to cover both lenses, otherwise I hurt the sensors that are related to the wide angle. Thank you. So this is that one, and in particular, these ones are only, because it's an adapter that goes over it, these ones are, I want to see if they tell me what the size they are. No, it doesn't specifically for it. But the interesting thing is, this is an ND, and when we look at this filter, ND 1 million. That's how dark of a filter they put on these for the density. The ND, it doesn't tell me what this one is, but if I would recommend, if you're going to do this, you go back to your manufacturer's site, like Canon, Nikon, if you have your own camera, and actually go over them and tell them, I'm looking for an Eclipse, and this is my whole purpose of doing it, and they'll give you the recommendation for yours based on your cameras and your sensors. So yes, so we just click this one on, literally over top here. For whatever reason, magnetically it's not connected. Back it up backwards. I know I can go backwards. Yeah, I get it right here. Say it's not magnetic or upside down. There we go, head it upside down. So here you go. And so that, yes, that's how it works.
And then actually for the Eclipse, we had an event here a while ago. What I did, because we don't have the ND lens for this camera, because we didn't bring it, I just took the cover for the Celestron mini Dobson that we have over there, and since it has this part around here, I just made sure that I was holding this completely flush with the lens, and that worked out great, and I got some pretty good pictures of the Eclipse.
So I'm so sorry if I am bogarting the whole thing. I'm just asking the questions that people have been asking, as I go to workshops. So what about taking pictures with your phones as we're talking about the lenses? A lot of people are asking, when they just want to take pictures with their phones, they're not looking for high quality, and they're like, can I just put these glasses over them? And I'm like, I'm telling you, no.
I would say you can. I can say it that way. You could, and you can see what the result is. You risk harming your sensors. Does that make sense? You risk damaging the sensors inside your camera if it's not a dark enough quality. Every sensor has its own sensitivity, for lack of a better word, based on the size of that chipset and the size based on the manufacturer and the gain up that they've already built into the system. So if you put too light of a filter on, you're going to damage your sensor, and so you'll be able to take the pictures up to the point that your sensor gets so damaged that it doesn't work, or it works. But after that, when you take your filter off, all of your other pictures now start becoming color incorrectly or too dark or too bright because you've damaged the sensor.
Well, that's all I have. If Dr. Hott has anything else to say?
Are you done?
Yep.
Okay,